Hi, my name's Eric and welcome to my shop. This is 4 reasons why you should add a rabbet when cutting a dovetail. I'm going to start by using my rabbet plane to reference off of my pin board and transfer that onto my tail board. Here's my tail board, and I'm going to treat this like a marking gauge. So if I drag it across, get the same effect as if this was a marking gauge. So a rabbet is just a groove at the edge of a board, and it's got to be 90 degrees and flat bottomed and straight across. So I used this skew block plane from Veritas to cut my rabbet. In these shots, you'll see me using the rabbet to reference my saw, and later I'll use the rabbet to reference my chisel. The rabbet really functions well to help you aim where you're chopping. Here I'm using my marking gauge to transfer the thickness of the tails onto the pin board. Here you can see our second benefit. I can set the pin board to the equal height with my hand plane, and I can use the rabbet on the tail board to reference so that the tail board is not sliding around while you're trying to mark and transfer the pins. Rob Cosman does the same thing, so you may be familiar with this benefit. And here I am just using my Cat's Moses dovetail jig to cut out my pins. So this next part is what I like to call the sloping coping method. You can see I've got the face of the board towards me, and I have my coping saw set up in a push stroke motion, and I've got this baseline here that is actually going to be covered up by the rabbet. So when that piece is registered, I've got quite a bit of wiggle room below the baseline that you're never going to see. So instead of trying to cope this perfectly smooth and having to chisel everything out, I'm going to intentionally tilt my coping saw in a downward direction, cutting below my baseline on the far side and just staying barely above it on my face side. So I start with my teeth facing toward the cut so that I don't cut to the right of it. Cut at a downward angle and turn it horizontal as soon as possible. So if you can see it on the camera, I've got a very ragged edge on the backside, and I don't care. It's all beneath the baseline, if you can tell. And I'm going to go back and cut the other way to finish this off. But my front side, I have not touched my baseline, and that means that there's not much material supporting right there, and I don't have to worry about it being flat. I can just chisel off the front, which is very, very easy since there's nothing supporting it. So I'm going to finish this off and cut the other side. I'm going back the other way. There we go. And same thing on this side. Cut down. Turn horizontal. Don't touch the visible side of your baseline. So now, we've got the same thing on both sides of this board. You can see my knife wall. On this side, I have cut beneath my baseline, but within the range that my rabbet's actually going to cover that up. Now I'll take a chisel and chop down to my baseline like you traditionally would. And then, once you're within reach, you just drop your chisel into the baseline. And skew a little bit forward towards you. And just work your way across. And with this method, you're really only chiseling that front tiny bit. So you can see I've still got my saw cut everywhere that it didn't touch, and that's perfect because it's beneath the baseline. I don't have to worry about this being flat as long as it's sloped away. So that should do it. So I'm going to put it back in the vise. And I tend to avoid my score lines, so I'm probably going to have to file it, but I'm going to be close. So I'm fitting on this side. And fitting on that side, but the middle just needs a little bit of a shape. So I like to take a file and give it a tiny rub until it fits. There we have it, a nice press fit. And I got one tiny gap. But if you look on the back side, it's perfectly clean. The edges are gap-free. Yeah, you might see a fractional hairline there from the rabbet if you were imperfect, but it looks great. So last but not least, I'm going to plow a groove, and I'm going to cut that groove to match where the tail goes. So I just set my plow plane into that line. You can do this on the table saw. And most people like to start at the end. I don't know yet if I like that or not. And work your way back. Try not to chip anything out. And the goal here is to go as deep as you can without touching the rabbet. Knock these bench dogs down a little bit. Okay, full depth. And now got a groove in my pin board, and I need to cut a matching groove in my tail board, so that's going to be on this bottom side here. So move my bench dog, clamp it up, and without changing my setting, as long as I don't cut into my rabbet, I should have no need to fill any holes. Okay, no touching of the rabbet. You can see there's a tiny shelf in here that protects the rabbet. And so when I line these up and insert them, your groove should match. It would if I had it all the way seated. So there we go, our grooves match. And most importantly, from the outside, you can't see where that goes on either side. So you're not having to plug any sort of holes. And this would need to get clamped up a little bit tighter, but you can see there. And here's a box made from the same board that I did the same thing on. So here is my box bottom, and you can't see it from either edge, and I didn't have to do any sort of filling. Similarly, You can see I did the slope and cope method. So there's my rabbet, there's my groove. The groove does not touch the rabbet. And if you look at my pin boards, they're gnarly because I coped them at an angle. But it doesn't matter because on the inside of the box, when it is assembled, you can't see any gnarliness. It's pretty pristine. So there you have it. Those are my 4 reasons you should add a rabbet when cutting your dovetails. Just in review, first off, when you cut the rabbet, you have a registration point for your chisels or your saws to help you get a cleaner cut. To me, that's beneficial because you don't have to chisel from the inside as much, but you can just worry about chiseling from the outside, and that gets you a clean result with less effort. Secondly, when you're transferring your tails to your pin board, that's enough of a reason that Rob Cosman has adopted it, at least in the past, and now he uses tape to get a similar effect, but that was enough reason for him to incorporate a very small rabbet. You need a little bit more of a rabbet for this method to work and to get some of the benefits I'm talking about. Third, one of the bigger benefits is the slope and cope method, or sloping cope method. I've never heard of anybody using this. I think this is my own design, but let me know if you've seen this somewhere else. But because you have that rabbet, you don't care as much about what the inside of your pin board looks like. So because of that, you can cut at an angle, a slope, with your coping saw, leaving a gnarly edge intentionally, but then you have a way easier time chiseling out the waste on the outside of your board. And then finally, when your box is assembled, you have your grooves perfectly concealed by that rabbet. So you have a place to put your drawer bottom or box bottom, and you don't have to patch any holes, which has always been a really difficult thing for me. I don't like doing that. I think I tend to mess up my boxes, and they're basically mistakes in my eyes. So if you can avoid them, all the better. So let me know what you think. Leave me comments. I'm really curious to hear if you'd like to adopt any of these methods, or if you have anything else unusual to add that can refine this method. Thanks.